Welcome back to the Daily Drum on WHUR and Sirius XM Channel 141. This is the Insight segment. I'm Harold Fisher. We are just short of 2 full weeks of the new Trump administration, and a lot has happened and is happening as a result of the hundreds of executive orders signed. Of course, the nation is also mourning the deaths of 67 people after the crash of an American Airlines regional jet and an Army Black Hawk helicopter earlier this week. Well, tonight on the Political Roundtable, we take a look at the Trump agenda and some of the other political stories making headlines this week. My guests are Dr. Nyambi Carter, professor of public policy at the University of Maryland and author of the book American While Black, Howard University political science professor Dr. Marcus Board Jr., Dr. Avis Jones DeWeaver, political analyst and editor-in-chief of Max Black Politics, and Reese Colbert, host of the Reese Colbert Show on Sirius XM. Thank you all for joining the conversation.
Thank you, Harold.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just a couple of quick headlines. Helicopter flights near Reagan National Airport have been indefinitely restricted by the FAA. Those restrictions come after Wednesday night's collision between the jet and the Army helicopter. 2 helicopter routes have also been closed, including the one used by the Black Hawk. Before we even get into the politics, certainly we wanted to extend our condolences to the families of those who lost their lives in this tragic accident near Reagan National Airport. But I wanted to give you just a quick moment, Dr. Board, just to talk about Kia Devins, who was coming to Howard University.
Yeah, Kia Duggins, amazing person, amazing soul, vibrant and alive in a way that once you meet her, you know exactly who she is. It's the type of person that you have no business talking about in the past tense. There are folks who I know who know Kia much better than I did that met up last night, and we had a moment together to just honor and reflect and cherish her life. She will be missed more than anybody's words can say. And people like that just don't, it just shouldn't happen. So, we sending all love to her family, her loved ones, to this whole community, people who will miss her dearly.
Yes, and from the reporting that we've heard about her accomplishments, Kia Duggins would have been a wonderful addition to the Howard University family, and specifically the Howard University School of Law. And so certainly we send a lot of love out to her family. Let's get into some of the issues of the week. One of the things that we could all agree on is the head-snapping comments that President Trump made earlier this week about this plane crash and DEI. Let's listen to this and we can talk about it on the other side.
I do want to point out that various articles that appeared prior to my entering office, and here's one. The FAA's diversity push includes focus on hiring people with severe intellectual and psychiatric disabilities. That is amazing. And then it says FAA says people with severe disabilities are most underrepresented segment of the workforce, and they want them in, and they can be air traffic controllers. I don't think so. This was in January 14th, so that was a week before I entered office. They put a big push to put diversity into the FAA's program.
Nyambi, is this an American While Black moment?
Absolutely. I mean, he wanted to say that, probably saying much worse. DEI at this point has become code. We know that Donald Trump takes responsibility for nothing, even though he's the president of the United States, and this happened on his watch. And instead of talking about people like Kia Duggins and all of the other 66 other people who lost their lives that night, we have to talk about this garbage, because this man, even in a moment when he should be trying to console the families the communities that are now missing mothers and sons and daughters and real contributors. We have to talk about him trying to dishonor the people who work for the FAA, air traffic controllers, and Black people more specifically. He says DEI, but that's his code for saying Black. I mean, he treats DEI like a slur, like he did critical race theory and everything else. And we know the enormous pressure that agency has been under. We know the enormous pressure that air traffic controllers are under. There are not many Black people there, yet somehow he managed to blame them, Obama, and Biden. Everything but do the thing he's supposed to do as the president, which is to be a comfort. He wouldn't even go to the crash site. He said, what am I supposed to do? Swim there. So I don't think that there's much that we can take from a person who lacks the level of empathy, emotional awareness, and maturity to simply say, we are investigating. This is a tragedy. We are sorry, and we will do everything in our power to make sure nothing like this ever happens again. That's it. Full stop.
Yeah. Reese, I heard you screaming in my head before when I heard this yesterday.
Yeah, it's disgusting, appalling, and entirely predictable behavior. This man is small. This man is not fit. He's ill-equipped to handle anything on an intellectual level, on an emotional level, and certainly not on a leadership level. This person is going to shirk responsibility and accountability. And where he could have talked about how safe our skies are normally and how just much of a complete unheard of type of disaster this is, he decided to make it seem like there's a systemic issue within our government with DEI, unqualified people. And that's just the opposite of what people need to hear right now. People need to hear that it's still safe to fly. People need to hear that they're going to investigate this thoroughly, and where there could possibly be room for reform, he's going to be serious about it, even though we know that he gutted the aviation safety board just days earlier. So this is all a tool to, number one, perpetuate his racist propaganda against Black people, even sexist against women. And it's a tool to deflect from his responsibility and Elon Musk's responsibility in pushing out the FAA chief or head of this FAA days before this crash has happened. This is on Donald Trump. I don't want to hear anything about any Democrat, because no Democrat is in control of the government right now.
Avis, what bothers you the most about what you heard from Donald Trump on, and I said yesterday, I meant Wednesday?
Well, obviously the blatant racism, and what that is not even dog whistling. It is bullhorning. Okay. It is a big, broad, ugly bullhorn to suggest that Black people are not intelligent, that Black people are intellectually deficient. And therefore, when you see a Black person in a space of any sort, but particularly as it related to this specific incident, that means that somehow you do not have the best and brightest there, and therefore you are in danger. You in danger, girl. Like, that's what he was saying. Okay. And what is so disgusting to me about this is, this is very real to me. I'm one of these people that I use National all the time. I'm supposed to fly out of there next week. I have to tell you, I do feel less safe, but it has absolutely nothing to do with DEI. It has everything to do with him and his dismantling of the federal government. As Reese just mentioned, they eliminated the safety board that was in place with regards to aviation. They fired the FAA administrator. They put a hiring freeze on. So we know we need more air traffic controllers, not less there, but they can't hire them now. And this is just one example of how his approach to division and lack of governing, and also putting unqualified people in spaces of power, makes all of us less safe. In fact, the person who is in charge of investigating this, Department of Transportation head, his biggest background is as a reality TV star. He's done 3 seasons of The Real World, okay? So I have to tell you, I do feel less safe, but it has absolutely nothing to do with DEI. It has to do everything to do with this particular administration that is hell-bent on putting sycophants in positions of power who absolutely have no idea what they're doing.
Marcus, one of the things that we heard also from the podium on Wednesday was from the newly minted Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, where he was talking about eliminating DEI, and he said this is going to be, colorblind. But I would argue that this isn't about a colorblind agency, but an agency that does not see people for all that they are. And of course, we also heard today that the Department of Defense has canceled MLK celebrations or recognitions next month, Black History, LGBTQ, and other things as it relates to diversity. My question to you is, yes, Department of Defense defending this nation, making sure that is lethal. I get that, but the reality is that it is made up of all of us. Isn't all of this really kind of troubling?
Yes, obviously Trump is incapable of being a qualified leader, a qualified thinker. He's incapable of organizing a government. He's incapable of running anything of any use, from an ice cream stand to a school to selling steaks, to, et cetera, et cetera. The thing that he does understand is that the United States is an empire. And even when the empire is being nice to you, empire and imperialism is still a racist idea. We can't dominate militarily. We can't dominate in wars. We can't dominate territories and colonies. And then when it turns back around and says, we also don't like Black people, we don't like brown people, we don't like gays, we don't like women, and say, wow, but not us. We can run the empire fine, right? You can't have it both ways. And so something even as obvious as the FAA, something that just needs to run well for everyone's well-being, that can be racist too, right? The grass is not greener on this side. And so there's a hard conversation that folks need to have that tells us, hey, at some point, even if it's being nice to you and being good to you in your good times and taking care of you in the ways that you want, you can't succeed if your success is predicated on the harm and the exploitation of other people. So it's one of those challenges that, it's going to be a hard conversation to have because he's so incompetent. And yet, if we don't have that conversation, we're going to be spinning our wheels. And Toni Morrison didn't die for all that.
Reese, real quick, I've got about 2 minutes before the break, and we can talk about more on the other side. One of America's favorite stores, Target, which, in the parlance of pop culture, people called it Target, but now Target and other stores, certainly, and other big businesses, but Target in particular, because it is so embedded in pop culture and the economics of this country says that it's getting rid of its DEI practices. I spoke to an elected official just yesterday when I mentioned that, and she said, yes, I've turned in my Target card. We know that this is happening. Al Sharpton has asked for a boycott, and so have others. Do you think that'll work?
It can, if we let it work. I mean, we have trillions of dollars of buying power and we have options. So we can choose to shop elsewhere. I know my daughter said, can we go to the Red store, referring to Target last week? And I was like, nah, we're canceling that for now. So, if these stores want to either preemptively surrender to Donald Trump's federal policies that are applied to the federal government, not to private corporations yet, or if they want to just show us who they really are and who they wanted to be anyway, and now Donald Trump has given them license to be what they want to be, which is anti-DEI, then we have to show them what we want to do with our money and what we're not going to tolerate. So there are going to be people who don't want to do it. You don't need 100% of everybody to be on board with anything. If that's what you want to do, then go ahead and make it known with your pocketbook and go somewhere else.
Everybody is going to have an opportunity to respond to this Target issue in just a moment. We're going to take a quick break, but don't forget you can hear this in every edition of the Daily Drum Insight segment via podcast on WHUR.com. The original Quiet Storm with Raheem Devon is next on WHUR. I'm Harold Fisher. This conversation continues on Sirius XM, channel 141 and 96.3 HD2 in just a few seconds. Welcome back to the Daily Drum on Sirius XM, channel 141. I'm Harold Fisher. We continue our conversation at the political roundtable about the Trump agenda and other issues. My guests are Dr. Niambi Carter, professor of public policy at the University of Maryland and author of American While Black, Harvard University political science professor Dr. Marcus Board Jr., Dr. Avis Jones-DeWeaver, political analyst and editor-in-chief of Max Black's Politics, and Reese Colbert, host of the Reese Colbert Show on Sirius XM. Your thoughts about the Target situation, Avis? I would, argue this isn't, the days of the Montgomery bus boycott during the 1950s. Can Black people still have an impact?
Oh, absolutely. Black people can have an impact. We will just have to be very united in order to maximize that impact. But we also have a choice in terms of where we go instead. If you have access to Costco, go to Costco. Okay, Costco has been very, very bold in their admonition of any threats that they have received. I think people need to understand this is not just a unilateral threat coming from political innuendo from the Trump administration, specifically targeting private industry in executive orders that he signed last week, by the way. But it's also coming from external threats from right-wing organizations that are threatening to sue various different corporations if they don't eliminate their DEI programs. And so when we see companies stand up and say, I'm not going to bow to this pressure, when we see someone like Jamie Dimon say, bring it on, then I think we need to be very specific about who we support and who we don't. There are too many options out here for you to support organizations that don't support you.
Niambi, here's a question for you about companies that are really nervous about this, who, number one, they have DEI practices, but they haven't eliminated them. In order for them to stay safe, should they not say anything at all?
You mean to stay at Target or to stay off of the
any
president?
company, if a company wants to keep, like Costco, as Avis said, Costco was very, very upfront and says, we're keeping our policies. But some other companies, they may want to keep their policies, but they don't want to raise the ire of President Trump. Should they keep the policies and be quiet about what they're doing?
Well, I don't think their silence will save them. It never does. And I think the worst thing you can do is be silent because you're complicit. Say what you're going to do. And if this is about purchasing power, we know that Black people will spend money where they feel welcome. It's happened before, and certainly not going to Target is a lot easier thing to do than a bus boycott where people actually needed to organize taxi cabs. I mean, what we're really talking about is our comfort. And how much comfort are we really willing to sacrifice to say that you will respect us and treat us like people and treat us with dignity? And I think it's going to be the same for the companies that are there. I'm sympathetic to some of the brands that are in the stores. But again, you're telling us to prioritize your bottom line over our dignity. And those things are going to be in tension. And our dignity, I think, has to win every time over your choices as a capitalist. And this is not to suggest that capitalism isn't a system that people enjoy and engage with. We all do. But when you're telling me, don't boycott this brand or that brand because it's going to hurt your bottom line, I can't take that seriously, because what we're talking about is Black people fighting for their very lives, not just for the ability to buy your stuff in these stores. This is about a whole lot more than that. And I think if we want to be really smart about this, as my colleagues have said, we have to be united. But one of the things we know how to do, because we have the internet, is say, here are all of the brands that you can support with your Black dollars. Here are the online retailers where you can buy these products, or other retailers like Costco and others that support DEI that sell these brands. This is how you can buy out these brands so that these brands aren't stuck with options like the Targets and the Lowe's and other things of the world that say that they don't support them. So I think this is not an either or proposition. This is the only proposition. If we want to be taken seriously, then we have to be serious. And if we're not serious about our dignity, then who else is going to be?
Marcus?
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. I think it's never a bad time to buy Black. It's never a bad time to stop supporting corporations. It's never a bad time to take your money and use it and spend it wherever you can in places that give you some type of respect, that are willing to not only hire Black people, but hire Black managers and hire Black representatives, hire Black people everywhere. And usually there are folks who would say, why is it always about Black folks? And I think the answer is because Black folks are always targeted. And so, pun intended.
No pun intended. You beat me to it. Yeah, go ahead.
And so I think there's this big challenge here where, I liken it a bit to this cancellation of DEI policies to the affirmative action case that went through the Supreme Court. The connection being that these programs were limited. They did have problems, right? Affirmative action was bad for Asian Americans. It didn't mean we needed to get rid of the whole damn program. It meant we needed to fix it, right? And so as much as we are struggling right now, we will continue to struggle, right? I just saw an executive order from the Trump administration about ending radical education in K through 12 schools. Yeah. These things are going to keep coming at us. And, as much as we have been disabused or drawn away from, led astray from our community institutions, we need to make some new ones. And you need to find those people who are doing this work and have been doing this work despite the levels of support they do or don't have, because we all we got. And if we don't stick together, we gonna fall apart.
I want you all to listen to this. And I must say, and I hope that I'm not overstating this, but this was arguably one of the most frightening non-violent incidents that happened in this country in quite a long time.
There's no confusion within this building. I know there is, again, a lot amongst the media and those who don't seem to just be able to read a memo and take it for what it is. It's very clear. This is a temporary pause on federal funding to ensure that tax dollars are not funding things that this president has signed out of law. So the Green New Deal, DEI, etc. As I said repeatedly yesterday, and I would like to double down on the fact that Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, which I'd like to be clear on that today, welfare benefits, individual assistance, food stamps, etc., will not be impacted. So the American people should not be confused about this. And in fact, they should be grateful that this administration is actually valuing their hard-earned tax dollars.
Avis, I'm going to give you the first bite at that apple. But as I said, this turned the country for a day upside down by putting a halt on literally trillions of dollars of federal funding.
So what they're doing right now is testing the boundaries of their power. Mm-hmm. Okay, I think it's very important that we understand that. That was illegal. Let's get clear about that. The executive branch does not have power over appropriations. Mm-hmm. So it was illegal for him to halt any flow of money that he had absolutely no ability to touch, number one. Number two, she also said laws like the Green New Deal. There is no such law. Okay, she lied. All right. So what we're facing right now is this is what autocracies do. They are going to see how much they can get away with. This is very, very dangerous. And it was very heartening, though, to see that people pushed back and pushed back hard in order to get them to sort of step back a bit, because had that not happened, nothing would have changed. They would have kept going. And this sort of boundary testing is going to continue to happen and happen even before then in terms of the executive orders that he's written where he's calling DEI illegal. It's not illegal, okay? They've just believed trying to nullify a constitutional amendment via executive order. No, you can't do that, right? That's why it's been stopped so far in the courts. But here's what I want to say. This is just going to be the new normal now. They will continue to test and push the boundaries of their power, because what they're going for is not merely policy change. What they're going for is societal reshifting and reordering. And so that is going to take the destruction of norms that we have in place, laws that we have in place, and even the Constitution, which she previously has said the Constitution is not constitutional. Those words actually came out of her mouth. These people are not playing by the rules, and we need to be ready to fight.
Reese, do you see any well-meaning moderate Republican privately or even publicly giving pushback? Some of those, old guard, constitutional Republicans saying, okay, wait a minute.
Yeah.
I voted for you, Trump, but hold on.
No, I'm not seeing anything that rises to the level of a constitutional crisis that we have, a crisis of a dictator. This is Donald Trump pulling these people's punk cards. As Dr. Avis said, they're testing the limits of their boundaries. You have all of these people that themselves were elected. The entire Congress was elected, and you have senators. Oh man, my camera messed up. Can you still hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead.
All right. So you have all of these people who have power vested in them, and they are just letting Donald Trump trample all over them. So this is really Donald Trump not just testing the country, but also testing the different branches of government to see if they will bow down to Donald Trump, or if they will do their jobs that they're elected or they're appointed to do, and be that guardrail that we need 10 times more, because we have a president who thinks he's immune to any kind of consequences.
But Niambi, here's the thing, though, because this was something that affected the entire country. Is it possible, and as we know, I've said this time and time and time again, that the incorrect presumption is that the people who are most dependent on government services are people of color who live in major cities, but that is only because most media operates in major cities. So we know that. But the reality is there are a whole lot of people who do not look like us who live. This is a really big country geographically. And you have a whole lot of white folks in other states, in the Midwest, in the South, in the Northwest, et cetera, who also need the government services and nonprofits and on and on and on and on. So in testing the limits of power, is it possible that you're going to have other people who don't look like us who are going to give a lot of pushback?
Well, I mean, these are the same people that elected him. And same was the point. That's why
they FOFO.
Yes, it is. They're in the find out phase, because see, the problem is they didn't care about the poop getting on anybody else's shoes. They just didn't think it would get on theirs. And so now they're seeing that the things that they care about, like their health care, like their reduced and free lunch programs, all of that stuff is coming from federal grants, or much of it is coming from federal grants. And you have a president who's vowed to do the things that he's doing. It's not like he lied to them. It wasn't a shill game. He told you exactly what he was going to do. But that was the point. Except you wanted it to happen to all the bad people. Just like with these deportations. You thought he was just going to go for the, quote, criminals, right? You thought he was just going to go for the bad people that come here to not work and do all of the things, right, that they were talking about, until it starts to be you. And then it's like, well, wait a minute. Whoa. Well, that's not how this works. Donald Trump is going to take a sledgehammer to every institution in this country that he can, if it means he can consolidate his power. That's what he's going to do. That's as Dr. Avis mentioned a moment ago, right? All of this is very clear that he is sending signals to show you what he wants to do and see how much he can get away, how much complicity he can get out of people. I mean, he already had people carrying his water with this grant saying children can get jobs and work through school, that a free lunch is getting them habituated to welfare. Like, how cruel must you be to say that children don't deserve to eat in this country? And this is why these same people elected him. And when bad stuff happens to them, like the hiring freeze, and people found out like, oh, I can't get this job at the VA right now because he said we can't hire anybody. This is the stuff that people were trying to warn you about. But nobody ever wants to listen to Black folks when we tell them this guy's dangerous, this guy's a problem, this is why. Nobody ever wants to listen to us. And then when it happens to them, it's like he sold them a bill of goods. He told them exactly what he was going to do. So yeah, they're finding out.
Let me play a little something else. And then Marcus, I'll have you take the first bite at this apple.
How involved was Elon in the buyout program? We saw that Doge posted on X today that trying to answer questions about it.
Yeah.
Are they working out of a lot of Doge people working out of OPM right now?
As you know, President Trump tasked Elon Musk with starting up Doge, and he already has done that in the first week. They've been incredibly productive and efficient already, saving taxpayers tens of billions of dollars. So we welcome Elon Musk's support in this effort. He has also brought in incredibly talented individuals, engineers, skill-based workers, many of whom are volunteering their time, not even getting paid because they want to make this government more efficient, and they're already doing that.
Marcus, two things I want you to talk about as it relates to this so-called buyout, but also I would like for you to first comment on the power that Elon Musk has, someone, and this is another Black issue, someone who was raised in South Africa at a time when there was South African Jim Crow, apartheid. And that is something that I don't think a lot of people are really paying attention to.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same reason why Trump magically couldn't get prosecuted over these last 4 years. It's the same reason why the Confederates weren't prosecuted. It's the same reason they weren't prosecuted in South African apartheid. It's the money, power, respect. So I know you might not have been expecting the locks and DMX and Lil Kim.
No, actually, it's you, and I'm always, and not only the locks, but any other old school hip hop reference, yeah. I'm here for it.
Shout out Jada Kiss. But like, it's the same kind of trajectory. And as much as we talk about history and history repeating itself, we're seeing the same things again. So what Trump is doing with Musk is kind of giving us an easy target, right? We can go and hate on Musk and say, well, he's got to get rid of him, so that when he does eventually, as he will, then we can say, well, at least we got rid of him. But he's really just creating the next Trump. And so I think there's just this system of money and power and respect that keeps us very locked down as regular, everyday, average, go to work, do our jobs, live our lives people who shop at Target when we wasn't hated by them, right? Like, we are in trouble, and these folks don't have anything for us. And I think we have to figure out a real solution to get past this kind of, the person in the nicest suit is the best choice. I think we need to start thinking about, rather than thinking just about who can get in the seat, we got to start thinking about what we actually want from them before and after. It's a tough conversation, but there's no time like the present. It's not like he's going to stop because we said so.
Mm-hmm. And the other
mama, he probably ain't listen to her either.
The other thing, Marcus, is all of a sudden, those historically great, good government jobs may not be so good anymore.
About that, I think we're at a position now where the DC, Maryland, Virginia area is really susceptible to a level of turnover. In my mind, displacement and gentrification has been absolutely doing its thing here. I think we're going to see great migration levels of turnover. Black people retiring, quitting their jobs, just getting out and finding a way to get free from being in a job where they're going to be, have the eye on them all the time anyway. They're going to say, well, I can get out and get a little something for it. I think a lot of people might be smart to take this, but they're being put in such an impossible position. And I regret to say that we don't really have a great alternative for them. We don't have mass mutual aid. We don't have people saying, we're going to let you into our college, your kids into our colleges and universities to learn and study for free like they used to be able to a little while back, right? We don't have people who are saying we can do some healthcare for you as you need it and feed your family and make sure that you got heat, right? We don't have co-ops. We don't have anything for them. And so the folks that are trying to get them those things, we're few and far between. We're doing our best, but for them, they're going to have to make decisions that's right for their families and for themselves. And we need to really respect them in that choice.
I think you have to be very careful, though.
Yeah, go ahead, Avis, and then you, Reese. Go right ahead. Go ahead, Avis, and then you, Reese.
Sorry, I was just saying, we have to be very careful. Do not believe him. This man lies like he breathes. Like I just said, the president does not have power over the purse strings. They can't afford to pay 2 million federal workers their salaries up until September. Where is that money going to come from? That's not been appropriated anywhere. Do not believe him. But I will also say, when we think about DEI, we've been looking at this from a very, very small frame. yes, it impacts people who are employed. And yes, the federal government has been a place for Black people to enter the middle class historically. So we're disproportionately hurt when federal workers are targeted. But we also need to understand that this also includes supplier diversity programs. It also includes programs that are meant to help Black businesses, for example, get contracts. I want people to understand this is bigger than specific jobs, as important as they are. This is an all-out assault on Black economic power from every angle, including the gateway to the middle class with regards to federal employment, including gutting opportunities for Black businesses. I have clients myself this week that have already been told that contracts that they had have been rescinded. Others that have been told they've been placed on a blacklist because in the past they've done diversity training. So they've been told they will not get any future federal contracts under this administration. We're not really, I would say the best analogy for this is like the post-Reconstruction era 2.0. All right. What they are doing is undermining the infrastructure that had been put in place to provide us a modicum of opportunity, devoid of the systemic white supremacy that we had faced under the Jim Crow period. And so I need us to understand, number one, don't believe them. Number two, we need to understand how can we support Black businesses in this moment, because that is the only viable alternative in my mind, given history of being more likely than other businesses to employ our own. And we already know with what's happening right now, opportunities there are going to be reduced.
Reese.
Yeah, the other point I just wanted to make is that Russell Vought, who is, nominated to be the OMB director, he talked about, and Project 2025 talks about the psychological warfare. Their best asset, their biggest weapon is not people forcing, not that they have legal mechanisms to force people out, but attrition, people deciding to take these fake offers, people deciding to leave the federal government. And if they decide to do that, sure, great, more power to them. I wouldn't want to work there either, but they still need people to force them out. I mean, they still need people to opt out of the system. They don't have the power yet to force as many people out as they want. And so I understand that there is a level of vulnerability that people feel, but there still are a lot of protections that for now are holding. You have people that are in unions, you have the courts so far that are holding. And so I just want to try to get people to get away from the preemptive surrender. All of these companies, preemptive surrender, all of these, I want to call it bribes, essentially settling these lawsuits with the Trump people, preemptive surrender. They are getting more power because people are throwing their hands up. So don't let your good government job go because these people are trying to harass you. We are mentally strong and built for this moment because we stand on the shoulders of our ancestors who've been through way worse.
Real quick, some thoughts on Trayon White, DC Ward 8 council member. There was a hearing this week, the prelude to what may be his ouster on Tuesday. Niambi, what does this portend, not only for White? Of course, his trial is a year away. He has not been convicted. But what does this portend for Ward 8 residents who are asking a lot of questions?
Well, listen, I think this is a hard one because, as you noted, he has not been convicted yet. Whether you like the person or not, I would say don't step down. You haven't been convicted of anything yet. Go to court. We got to also remember that in the midst of this scandal, those same voters elected Trayon White. So I think to assume, right? Yeah, people might have questions, but to assume that people won't still want him there as their representative, as is their right, is also, I think, inaccurate. And I think, in some respects, if I'm his legal counsel, and I'm not a lawyer by any stretch, so do with this what you will, but to step down suggests that you're guilty. So if your contention is, I've done nothing wrong, I'm not guilty, I'm being persecuted, then I wouldn't step down.
Well, they're going to vote on Tuesday whether or
right.
not.
But what I'm saying is, I wouldn't
him, yeah.
voluntarily leave. They would have to put me out. And honestly, the bar is so high, so low nationally. If this man who's a civilly convicted sexual assaulter and a 34-time convicted felon then where's the bar really? So like, I'm not saying Black people should demand less. I'm just saying we can't pass judgment on this person when we can't even get our own political house in order. So if I'm Trayon White, they're gonna have to pull me out of there.
Avis, real quick, thoughts about Trayon White?
I just have to, give a double yes to what was just said, in the sense of, hell, listen, we have a felon in the White House, full stop. All right. So I would never step down until the fat lady has sung. Absolutely not.
Okay. Marcus?
Ditto. Do your job. Don't go to jail. Do right by people.
He said, don't go to jail.
That's the bar.
Yeah,
that's the bar.
Reese,
do your job. Don't go to jail and do right by people. Like,
Reese, your thoughts about Trayon White?
I guess I'm in the minority here, but I say, listen, if he wants to fight for his position, that's fine. But I also think that if there is a legally followed process to expel him and the votes are there, that is their right as well. As long as everything is by the book legally, then the council has the authority, like I said, assuming it's legal, to do what they need to do, because there's something called the appearance of impropriety. So there is, and that's me coming from a finance background, where even if you're not guilty, the appearance sullies everything that is associated with it. So I'm looking at it from that perspective of, does it sully the credibility and the trustworthiness of the entire council? Maybe not for the residents of that particular ward who voted for him, but for the entire city and people that are accountable to their constituents. They may feel like by letting that go, that can impugn their integrity and their credibility. So I'm looking at it from that perspective. But listen, he ain't had his day in court, so I'm not trying to prosecute him or say he's guilty. But I think that just the appearance alone is not a good look.
Real quick, I've got a minute left. Let's end on an up note. In about a week or so, Super Bowl 59. Marcus, Philadelphia Eagles or Kansas City Chiefs?
I'm going to go Chiefs. I love a good dynasty.
Okay.
Shout out to Patty Mahomes, the GOAT.
Eagles, of course. Eagles. All day. Hey, I'm going for the black quarterback that likes black women.
Listen, Philly is my favorite city. I went to Temple. I worked in Temple. Right. I lived there. So Philly all day. And I have to ditto Avis on that one. I'm here for Jalen Hurts.
Okay. Reese?
I'm going for Jalen Hurts because he has a fiance that's black and is not MAGA like Patrick Mahomes. So yeah, it's team Fly Eagles Fly over here. And then if we can get a little Mufasa video as a bonus, then I'll really be happy with it. So yeah,
wait, what? From Saquon Barkley? Are we just dreaming? Are we just?
Oh Lord have mercy!
Don't hate.
No, I like Saquon. Let's. He can be Mufasa too. What are we doing? Wake it up, Harold. Wake it up.
Hold on. I got the final word. I got a major problem with all of this. I live in Baltimore.
I know.
I'm from DC.
Close.
I lived in Buffalo and I lived in Kansas City.
Uh-oh.
So I'm just going to enjoy the game.
Boo, tomato. Tomato.
Look, thank you all so very, very much to some of the biggest, brightest, best political minds that this show ever has. I really appreciate it. We're going to continue to watch. Thank you so much. That is the Daily Drum for this Friday, January 31st, 2025. For News Director Renee Nash, I'm Harold Fisher. Good night.